I'm Jodi, 38. A single mom grinding through an office job in Milwaukee to raise my twins, Alexandra and Joseph. Family is supposed to be your anchor, but mine always left me adrift. I've always felt like a guest in my own past. I wanted one night, New Year's Eve, where my kids could feel they belonged, not like shadows in their grandparents' cabin. For weeks, I texted about the gathering at their Lake Michigan place, offering to bring a salad, drinks, anything. The replies were short, almost like I was begging for an invite. Still, I ignored the knot in my gut. The twins, buzzing with hope, helped toss the salad, the one my mom used to love, and picked out clothes, dreaming of cousins and games. We pulled up at dusk, cars already crowding the drive. Inside, the cabin pulsed with chatter, clinking glasses, and warmth. The table was packed, my parents, brothers, their families, even neighbors' plates overflowing. No space left. I stood there, salad bowl heavy in my hands, kids clinging to me. No one looked up. I asked if there was room for us. My mom's words cut sharp. Seats are only for important people. My brother laughed. Stand and watch like always. It hit like a slap. No argument, no scene. I set the bowl down, took the twins' hands, and walked into the cold. We ended up at a diner by the lake, their hot cocoa and pancakes turning it into an adventure. I watched fireworks flicker as they slept, gift bags untouched in the back seat. If you've ever felt erased by family until they need you, like and subscribe to hear how this unfolds. The next afternoon, my phone buzzed insistently on the kitchen counter. I glanced at the screen and saw my brother's name, Brandon. I hesitated, thumb hovering. Memories of the night before still raw, but curiosity won, and I answered. His voice came through shaky, breathless, like he'd run a marathon. He dove in, explaining a sudden chest pain that led to the ER in Milwaukee. Tests showed a blocked artery, complicated by gaps in his insurance from a spotty job history. The hospital demanded $14,000 upfront for the procedure, or they'd send him home to wait. He sounded desperate, pleading that our parents couldn't cover it, that Brianna, his wife, had already drained their cards on basics. I stayed silent at first, letting his words sink in. Then I whispered back, "Happy New Year, Brandon. Ask the important people." It felt like a small victory, echoing the dismissal I'd swallowed the night before. I hung up, heart pounding, a mix of anger and guilt swirling inside. Why should I be the lifeline after years of being sidelined? Yet the thought of him suffering, tubes and monitors beeping around him, tugged at old bonds. We grew up sharing secrets in that cabin. Him, the protective older brother, once before life pulled us apart. Minutes later, the calls flooded in. Voicemails piled up, first from Brandon again, frantic, detailing the doctor's warnings about risks if delayed. Then Brianna texted, urgent and clipped, saying it was critical. My mom followed with a practical, edged with expectation message, urging me to step up as family. Dad's call went unanswered, but his voicemail was brief, mentioning they'd tried everything else. I paced the living room, the twins playing nearby, oblivious to the storm building. Part of me wanted to delete it all, finally draw a line against the pattern of being invisible until convenient. As the hours ticked by, the pressure mounted. Brianna sent a photo. Brandon in a hospital gown at Milwaukee General, eyes half closed, oxygen mask strapped on, monitors blurring in the background. It stopped me cold. I stared at his pale face, the sterile lights casting harsh shadows. Despite the resentment, he was still blood, the one who taught me to swim in Lake Michigan summers ago. The what-ifs crept in. What if it worsened? What if my refusal tipped the scale? I locked the phone, then unlocked it again, debating in loops. That's when Aunt Jenna called. She's my mom's younger sister, always the peacemaker in our fractured dynamics. Her voice was steady, acknowledging the hurt from the gathering without dwelling. She suggested helping just enough to ease my conscience, maybe half, to show I wasn't heartless, but wouldn't be drained dry. It made sense in that moment. A compromise amid the chaos. I sat at my desk, logged into the bank app, and initiated the transfer. $7,000, more than my emergency fund could comfortably spare. My fingers trembled on the confirm button, but I hit it anyway. Afterward, I called my mom to let her know. She picked up quickly, relief evident, but laced with detachment. No warmth, no acknowledgement of the sacrifice, just a curt question about when the rest might follow. I clarified that was all, and she ended the call abruptly. I leaned back, staring at the ceiling, a hollow feeling settling in. The money was gone, but so was any illusion of reciprocity. Brandon texted a quick thanks later, promising repayment once he recovered, but it rang empty. I didn't reply, focusing on dinner for the twins, pushing the turmoil aside. Deep down, I knew this wasn't closure. It was just the start of testing limits I'd ignored too long. The days blurred after that. Work kept me busy, shuffling papers and answering calls. But my mind wandered back to the hospital scene. I checked updates discreetly, seeing Brianna's vague social media posts about tough times, with no specifics and no mention of my role. Of course, Aunt Jenna messaged encouragement, reminding me I'd done the right thing by family standards. Yet doubt lingered. Had I enabled the same cycle that left me standing outside their circle? The twins asked about their uncle once, sensing my distraction, and I brushed it off with a smile, promising he'd be fine. By evening, the weight eased slightly. I tucked Alexandra and Joseph into bed, reading their favorite story. Their laughter was a reminder of what truly mattered. But as I lay awake, the transfer receipt glowing on my phone, I wondered if this act of mercy would haunt me. Family bonds, I realized, could bind or strangle, and I had just handed over the rope. Still, in that quiet hour, a resolve stirred. I wouldn't let it pull me under completely. 2 weeks later, I was folding laundry when my phone pinged with a Facebook notification. Brianna, my brother's wife, had posted a long update about his recovery, a miracle after the heart procedure at Milwaukee General. The post overflowed with gratitude for family, friends, even strangers who sent prayers. My name was nowhere in it. Not a hint of the $7,000 I'd wired, the chunk of my savings covering half their hospital bill. I scrolled through the comments, heart emojis, well wishes from distant cousins and neighbors around Lake Michigan. It stung. Not the money itself, but the erasure, like I'd never existed in their moment of need. I opened my messages and drafted a calm text to Brianna, asking when they could start repaying the $7,000, maybe in small chunks. Her reply came fast, almost rehearsed. She described their tight finances, how medical bills kept piling up, then pivoted. Could I send $2,000 more for his rehab meds? The request hit like a punch I should have seen coming. I stared at the screen, fingers frozen, a familiar ache settling in. This wasn't new. Growing up, I'd always been the one to cover gas for family trips, buy extra groceries when their fridge ran low, only to be forgotten until the next ask. I didn't respond. I locked the phone and busied myself with the twins' school schedules. Alexandra and Joseph were thriving, their laughter filling our small apartment. But the weight of that message lingered. I couldn't shake the sense of being a tool, pulled out only when convenient. Later that evening, my mom texted. Her words were blunt, urging me to think of others, to consider what Brandon was going through. It wasn't a request, it was a directive, laced with the same expectation I'd heard my whole life. I read it twice, each word tightening the knot in my chest. My dad stayed silent this time, his absence louder than any lecture. The next morning, I was brewing coffee when another message popped up from Aunt Jenna. She's my mom's younger sister, always the one to call after family spats, offering perspective. Her text was cautious, almost conspiratorial. She mentioned a family secret. Our grandparents had left a small inheritance, about $10,000, tucked away in a trust controlled by my parents. They'd never told me, but used parts of it for my brother's expenses over the years, cars, weddings, even a down payment. Jenna urged me to ask about it, to demand my share, saying it could offset what I'd given. Her words lit a spark. I'd poured my savings into their crisis, yet they'd hidden this from me, treating me like an outsider, even in our family's legacy. I sat at the kitchen table, replaying every moment I'd felt invisible. The twins' drawings hung on the fridge, a reminder of what I was building for them, a life where they'd never question their worth. But the inheritance revelation shifted something. It knew, but now it cut deeper, layered with the knowledge of that hidden trust. Aunt Jenna messaged again, asking if I'd confronted anyone yet. I hadn't, but her words stayed with me, fueling a resolve I hadn't felt before. I started saving screenshots, Brianna's posts, my mom's texts, even the bank transfer confirmation. Something told me I'd need them by the end of the week. I was back at work, juggling spreadsheets and school pickups. The twins sensed my distraction, asking if their uncle was okay. I nodded, keeping it light. But inside, I was mapping out my next steps. The $7,000 wasn't just money. It was my line in the sand. I wasn't asking for gratitude anymore. I was demanding fairness. The inheritance, the loan, the years of being pushed aside. It all crystallized into one truth. I'd been giving to a family that never gave back. 1 month later, I was wiping down the kitchen counter when the doorbell rang. Through the peephole, I saw Brianna standing on my Milwaukee doorstep, holding a bakery box tied with a ribbon. My stomach tightened. I opened the door, keeping it half closed, my body braced for whatever came next. She smiled too brightly, launching into small talk about the twins' school before pivoting to the real reason. Medical bills were still mounting, she said, and they needed $5,000 to cover the latest hospital charges. Her tone was casual, like she was asking for a cup of sugar, but her eyes held a calculated edge. I stood frozen, the box of pastries feeling like a prop in her performance. I didn't respond, just stared, letting the silence stretch. The audacity of it burned, showing up unannounced, expecting me to open my wallet again after they dismissed my sacrifice. I thought of the years I'd been the reliable one, always giving, always overlooked. Without a word, I shut the door, the click echoing in my ears. The twins were at school, leaving the apartment quiet, but my mind raced. I expected her to knock again, but she didn't. Instead, my phone lit up with Brandon's name. His voicemail was sharp, accusing me of turning my back when family stepped up. The phrase landed like a jab, twisting the knife of obligation I'd felt my whole life. By evening, my inbox pinged with an email from my mom, setting up a video call for the next day. I knew what was coming, a coordinated push. I spent the night restless, replaying every time I'd caved to their demands. From splitting restaurant bills to covering car repairs, the list seemed endless. The twins sensed my mood, asking why I seemed off. I brushed it off with a hug, promising everything was fine, but inside I was steeling myself. I wasn't the same Jodi who let guilt dictate her choices. The call came the next afternoon, their faces filling my laptop screen from the Lake Michigan cabin. My mom started, her voice firm, telling me to stop holding money over their heads. It wasn't about the $7,000 she claimed, but about unity, about not tearing the family apart. My dad chimed in, his tone softer but pointed. I had fewer burdens, no spouse, no health crisis, so I should help. Brianna jumped in, listing hospital fees, rehab costs, even travel expenses for follow-ups, as if I owed them a ledger of their hardships. Brandon sat quiet, jaw tight, letting them carry the charge. Their words piled up, each one a brick in a wall meant to trap me. I sat back, hands steady on the table. Their expectation wasn't new, but it felt heavier now, laced with the sting of being erased from their gratitude. I thought of the cabin, the place I'd once loved, now a backdrop for their demands. I saw my twins' faces in my mind, their trust in me to protect our small world. I wouldn't let it crumble under this pressure. When I finally spoke, my voice was even, cutting through their noise. You're expecting, not asking. I ended the call, the screen going black, my pulse steady for the first time in days. The silence that followed was deafening. I walked to the window, staring at the Milwaukee skyline, feeling a shift inside. I'd always been the one to bend to keep peace. But this time, I stood firm. The twins came home, their chatter filling the space, pulling me back to routine. I helped with homework, cooked dinner, tucked them in. Their small hands squeezing mine reminded me what mattered most. But as I lay in bed, the weight of the call lingered. I knew they wouldn't stop. Not yet. They'd always seen my resources as theirs, my boundaries as flexible. The $5,000 wasn't the issue. It was the pattern, the assumption I'd always given. Over the next few days, I kept my phone on silent, avoiding inevitable follow-ups. I focused on work, meetings, deadlines. But my thoughts drifted to the trust fund Jenna had mentioned. It wasn't just about money. It was about fairness, about being valued as an equal in a family that had always treated me otherwise. I started jotting notes, tracking every instance they'd taken without giving back. The bakery box sat unopened on the counter, a reminder of their tactics. I didn't touch it. Instead, I began searching for answers, digging into what rights I had to that hidden inheritance, wondering if it could balance the scales. By the weekend, I was back in rhythm, driving the twins to soccer practice, laughing at their stories, but a quiet resolve had taken root. I wasn't just fighting for money. I was fighting for respect, for a place in a family that had long pushed me to the margins. The video call had drawn a line, and I wasn't crossing it again. 2 months later, I was reviewing bank statements when a message from Brianna popped up. It casually labeled the $7,000 a gift. Given the situation, no need to discuss repayment. The declaration felt like a rewrite of reality, turning my calculated help into an act of generosity they'd invented. I saved the text immediately, my mind shifting to protection mode. This wasn't just dismissal, it was a deliberate maneuver to avoid accountability, one I couldn't let stand. That evening, I gathered all the proof. Wire transfer confirmations, transcribed voicemails where they'd begged urgently, text threads showing their promises. The pile grew, each item a testament to the loan's intent. I scheduled a consultation with a lawyer in downtown Milwaukee. Arriving with the folder clutched tight, the lawyer reviewed it methodically, pointing out how the timestamps and wording established a clear agreement. Aunt Jenna had forwarded screenshots from a private family chat, capturing their ridicule of my requests, labeling me ungrateful for a minor slight. Those captures bolstered the narrative, illustrating their disdain. Together, we composed a demand letter outlining the debt, stipulating repayment within 14 days, with court as the next step if ignored. Signing it brought a surge of clarity, a step toward reclaiming control. The lawyer sent it via registered mail, and I monitored delivery online, the tracking number a lifeline in the uncertainty. My dad's reply arrived as an email to the firm, copied to me, accusing me of fracturing bonds for financial gain. His words evoked past reprimands, stirring buried unease, but I held firm. This was justice, not destruction. Aunt Jenna reached out soon after. Her message carried hesitation, explaining she'd reconsidered after family discussions. She now viewed the matter as internal, not warranting outside intervention. Withdrawing her support, she declined to provide further details or stand as a witness, prioritizing unity over fairness. The reversal pierced sharply. She'd initiated the revelations, yet retreated when it mattered. I processed it in solitude, the shift underscoring how allegiances could sway under influence. The case felt more isolated, but the core evidence remained intact. I returned to the lawyer's office, briefing him on Jenna's change. He reassured me the foundation was solid. The financial records and communications were enough to prove obligation. We proceeded to file the small claims action at the local Wisconsin courthouse. The forms were straightforward, yet binding. I covered the costs from my reserves, thoughts swirling with scenarios of hearings and judgments. The twins picked up on my tension, inquiring about my quiet spells. I diverted with games, but internally, the legal path dominated my focus. I delved into online resources, studying claim limits and preparation tips, fortifying myself for what lay ahead. Daily life continued. Office tasks, parent-teacher meetings, simple meals. But the suit represented a pivot, a refusal to remain passive. I reflected on the trust, the disparities it highlighted, the decades of unequal treatment. Pursuing this wasn't vengeance. It was assertion, a claim to equity in a dynamic that had long marginalized me. Jenna's pivot hurt profoundly. She'd seen the imbalance, then chosen blindness. I archived her messages, a quiet severance to safeguard my progress. Their collective silence persisted. No concessions, just the shadow of my dad's warning. I anticipated the summons would jolt them, compelling a confrontation they'd evaded. At the filing's close, a sense of steadiness emerged. The choice reinforced my autonomy. The twins' routines grounded me. Their growth was a beacon amid the strain. I no longer sought validation. I pursued resolution for a tomorrow where my children witnessed resilience in upholding worth. 3 months later, I sat in the small claims courtroom in Milwaukee, my hands steady on the folder of evidence. The room was stark, fluorescent lights casting shadows on the wooden benches. The judge, a woman with a no-nonsense demeanor, reviewed my documents, bank transfers, voicemails, texts, all meticulously organized to prove the $7,000 was a loan, not a gift. I stood alone, no family by my side, facing Brandon and Brianna across the aisle. Their lawyer argued the money was a family favor, a voluntary act. But the timestamps and their own words undermined them. The judge's ruling came swiftly. I won, awarded the full amount plus court fees, payable within 30 days. The gavel's echo felt like release, a validation of my stand. Back home, I checked my account daily, expecting delays or excuses. The payment arrived on the 29th day, a transfer from Brianna's account, silent and unaccompanied by any note. I exhaled. The weight of that debt lifted, but the victory was hollow. My phone, once buzzing with their messages, went quiet. Social media confirmed the rift. They blocked me, unfollowed me, erased me from their digital lives. My mom sent a single text, "Don't contact us." The words landed like a final door slamming shut, severing ties I'd once fought to hold. I learned of their fallout through whispers on local forums and posts I could still see through a friend's account. Brandon's health, still fragile, forced him to take leave from his retail job, straining their budget further. The Lake Michigan cabin, their pride and gathering place, went up for sale to cover other medical debts. Brianna's latest social media update was vague, lamenting hard times without specifics. But the comments were brutal. Neighbors and acquaintances called out their entitlement, their silence on my role. The community's judgment mirrored my own, a quiet unraveling of their carefully curated image. I didn't celebrate. Instead, I sat with the twins, helping them with math homework. Their chatter grounded me. The courtroom wasn't about triumph. It was about reclaiming my worth after years of being dismissed. I thought back to the cabin, its warm lights and crowded table, a place I had once seen as home. Now it was just a memory, sold off to settle their choices. The hidden trust fund Jenna had revealed lingered in my mind, but I pushed it aside. Chasing it felt like chasing ghosts, and I was done with their shadows. Daily life pulled me forward. I juggled work deadlines, drove Alexandra and Joseph to soccer practice, and cooked their favorite meals. Their questions about family faded, replaced by school stories and small dreams. I answered carefully, shielding them from the fracture and focusing on the stability we'd built. At night, I reviewed the court documents, now filed away, a reminder of my resolve. The money was back, but the real gain was clarity. I no longer needed their approval to feel whole. Over weeks, the community's reaction to their posts grew sharper. Friends shared screenshots of neighbors' comments, some pitying, others scathing, accusing them of taking advantage. The cabin sale, listed on a local real estate page, drew attention, a symbol of their downfall. A place once filled with laughter was now reduced to a transaction. I didn't reach out. I didn't gloat. Their consequences were their own, a ripple effect of their refusal to see me as equal. As spring warmed Milwaukee, buffer for emergencies we'd face alone, I felt lighter, unburdened by their demands or judgment. The twins' trust in me, their small hands in mine, was enough. I was building a life where we belonged, not as afterthoughts, but at the center. 6 months later, I unlocked the door to our new apartment just outside Milwaukee. The keys jingled in my hand. It was bigger than our old place, with an extra bedroom for Alexandra and Joseph to spread out. Their artwork already pinned to the walls, I'd spent weeks packing and sorting through years of clutter, each box a step toward a fresh start. My office job, steady despite its demands, covered the lease, and I'd rebuilt our savings. Bit by bit, after the legal win, the twins ran through the empty rooms, their laughter echoing, claiming corners for their toys. I watched them, a quiet pride settling in. This was ours, a space where we weren't afterthoughts, where we belonged without question. I stopped checking on my family. No more texts to my mom or dad. No scrolling through Brianna's social media for updates. The silence was mutual, a boundary I hadn't just accepted, but chosen.